Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Sign Stories video. I'm SBI editor Alex Marcheschi, and today we are joined by Right Way Signs owner Alex Perry, based out of Chicago. Alex, thanks so much for being here today.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And everybody, if you didn't know, you can go back and check out the May edition of the magazine where some of his work was featured on the cover. It was a really great cover, one of my favorites, actually. The color
Yeah,
scheme was
thanks.
really nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so as everybody knows who watches, we are trying to keep these consumable, something nice and easy to enjoy, maybe on your coffee break, lunch break, between jobs at the shop. So I know, Alex, that you come from, I think, a bit of a corporate background. So I was just kind of wondering, how did you get into the signage industry? If you wouldn't mind giving the listeners a explanation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in the sign industry. My dad bought a company in 1980 in Evanston, Illinois, just kind of by chance. And it was a sign painting company. So if you look back then, it's kind of interesting that he was buying a sign painting company, but it had established clients like Northwestern University, for example. And he was uh, I would say the early 90s, things got a little tough. And growing up, in the 80s and 90s, going to his shop every summer and just hanging out with him, as a kid, didn't really see the struggles he was having, but he
Yeah.
had a hard time adapting to the vinyl signage, growth back then. So he kept with sign painting. Things got pretty tough, and I would say in 2003, after college, I went and helped him for a few years, and I became an owner because he didn't want to do that anymore. And then at that time, we had a former employee come to us looking for a job, but we were a small two-person operation, very low revenue, but things were very, very simple. Everyone came to us. We didn't really leave the shop. A former employee came, wanted a job. We didn't have it, and she said, "Well, what about me becoming a part owner?" So she became a part owner, and we'll save that for the future question about what I, wish I would have known back then. But things did not work out, and I went to work in the nonprofit sector, and working for the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, which was a state advocacy group, and we worked with the governor's office mainly on business legislation. And I did that for 8 years. And then I never thought I'd go back to the sign industry because I had just kind of had it, in my early 20s. And I saw an opportunity with my dad that things were not going well. He stayed on after I left as an employee. Things were not going well. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall that this business might go under. It eventually did. But I took my dad, kind of out of that environment and said, all right, well, let's start Right Way. And that's how Right Way was born. And it was never meant, I never really meant it to be a full-time job for me. I was thinking, okay, if I can help my dad out, and then sign painting became very popular around that time.
Okay.
Kind of reemerged, and murals, and the business took off, and here we are.
Wow, that's a great story. Did you name it Right Way because you're trying to do it the right way, or how did you get the name?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, actually, that was not the reason. I mean, it plays into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things I watched and witnessed as a teenager, when my dad was going through those hard times, was the way that vendors were treating him. I mean, anyone that's met my dad, he's a very nice and humble guy, and he's an artist. Artists aren't always business minded.
Yeah.
So,
True.
things kind of fell through the cracks, and suppliers and vendors, maybe he was late on some payments, and I watched how they treated him.
Yeah.
It was like, and we're not talking about thousands of dollars here. We're talking maybe like a past due invoice of $300, but
Hmm.
when we were thinking about renaming the company, and also my former business partner, I noticed how she was treating him and treated me. And so I thought, you know what, let's call this, Right Way Signs. And it's more of a philosophy of treating clients and vendors and suppliers, everyone with, not to sound corny, but mutual respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of been our philosophy. And I mean, of course, there's times when clients and suppliers push us to the edge.
Yeah.
So, we might veer away from the name a little bit, just push back a little. But that was really more of just having a better philosophy of how to be a good business owner and business citizen.
All right, great. Appreciate you taking the time to tell the story there. It's a
Yeah,
cool story. Admirable to try to prop your dad up and get him back in the mix there. So that's cool.
yeah,
The um the next question I have for you is very broad, of course. What do you love about the signage industry? This doesn't have to be certain types of signs. This could be anything from operations to whatever, you name it.
yeah. I think it's. I mean, anyone that's in this business knows that there's a lot of moving parts, and you make one wrong calculation or overlook something, things can go sideways pretty quick. So I think that the one part kind of within that whole mix of from beginning to end is the creative part. Is so when we get the ability to inject some creativity into it or help make the sign better, because one of the things I notice in this business, of course, when you're in the sign business, all you do is look at signs when you're driving around, and it's kind of
Yeah,
an unhealthy lifestyle. But when you see a bad design and you think that someone actually paid money for that, and there's been designers we've worked with that have kind of over the last 25 years have taught me a lot about you know too much, too little. And one of the designers that I worked with, we were talking about a design for a vehicle wrap,
okay.
and this person wanted to put everything on it. We do, so if we're in the sign business, we do signs, banners, you know, vehicle wraps, and you're just listing about 20 things, trying to
Yeah,
tell way too much. And he said, he goes, I'm not working on this design if you want to put all that information on there. You've got to simplify it. You got to
yeah,
strengthen your brand, and you got to make it look, something that people will say, wow. And he was 100% right on that. And uh, when you see someone trying to tell their entire story on the back of a van when you're in traffic, it
yeah,
drives me nuts. And then also the vinyl's peeling off, so they cheaped out on bad vinyl or temporary
yeah.
vinyl. So I think when we can kind of get in that mix and educate people on, hey, maybe we use a more expensive vinyl that will last longer. It'll make you look more professional, and then we try
Mhm.
to help them clean up their design so they can get you know, more bang for their buck. That's probably the one thing I love about this business. And in addition to, there's never each day is different. There's no
Yeah.
uh, you know, there's everything is just kind of you're on the edge of your seat at all times.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from other people that I've done these interviews with. They're like, if you're the type of person who doesn't like to do the same thing every day, it's a great type of job it's a great career to get into.
Yeah,
So you hinted at this a little earlier. For the last question here, it's a kind of an advice for your younger self or, a younger person watching who might want to start their own shop someday. What
yeah.
is the advice that you'd give to your younger self about this line of work?
Yeah. So I'll get to the second part of that question that I alluded to earlier. But the first part is I think in my 20s when I was 22, 23, and helping my dad out. I think the thing I did the most was stress out about everything. It's if something went wrong or a client wasn't happy with something, I'd take that home with me. It would be something that I'd go to sleep thinking about and wake up. And now that I'm older, it's I mean, it still obviously bothers me if someone isn't if we don't meet expectations. That bothers me. What misstep did we have? But at the end of the day, what I try to tell the client is that we're sorry this happened, or if we missed a deadline, especially during the pandemic when materials were hard to get, there was a
Hmm.
lot of missed deadlines, and they were understanding, but only to a certain point. Then after a while, they're like, okay, we really need our sign. So my advice is you can't control everything. There's a lot of things that are out of our control, and unfortunately, some clients just you could apologize, you could offer a discount, try to work with them to figure out another solution, and there's just going to be some clients that you'll never please.
Yeah.
And the second, the the second part of that question or that answer is that we get clients that come to us and they've been working with another sign vendor.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, this is the dream client. And what I've learned over 25 years is sometimes there's a reason they're coming to you, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the other sign company. So if you get that dream client and it seems too good to be true, try to figure out what the issue is. And we have gone through this so many times that, someone will call us and say, we've been working with XYZ company, they haven't been responding to us and we need to find a new sign company. We come to learn it's because they're difficult
Yeah.
and they have unrealistic expectations and they want everything yesterday and they want it cheap. It's like the three worst things in this business.
Yeah.
So that would be that part of the advice that I would have. And then the second part is, especially someone young getting into it, be very careful of business partners because I learned that the hard way. I gave that past business partner, and now I'm 100% owner now. I'd probably never take on a business partner again, but they had 51% and they promised me the world. And then when they actually took control, instead of getting a brand new van, which we really needed for a lot of reasons, they went out and bought another rusty old van that broke down all the time and did not give a professional look to our business.
Hmm.
So pulling up to a job site and you have a crummy looking van, it's just not a good look.
Yeah.
And so that's why I only lasted 2 years once I brought them on. I made the decision I got to go do something else. I
Yeah.
left my poor dad there to suffer. But it was a good, it was good lessons for me to go out into
Yeah.
the nonprofit world, but work for someone else, learn a lot of things, and then I kind of brought a lot of that back into the business.
All right. That's some great advice. I mean, really, you could sum it up to, kind of when vetting, doing some proper vetting, whether that's your business partner or, and like you said, a new client coming up, will you go as far as to actually reach out to the prior shop if they mention it and just ask how it went or no?
No, no. I mean, we'll work sometimes when we can see that they're going to be very difficult right off the bat. We'll
Yeah.
just say this isn't a good fit. I mean, and I'm talking they're being like really pushy. They
Yeah.
want free designs. They want free surveys, everything.
Okay.
Um, but sometimes it takes a few years to realize what the actual issue was.
Okay.
And this happens a lot with the larger companies. We've gotten some very, very large companies as clients, and we still have a lot of them, but there's been some where I'm like, why are they coming to us?
Hmm.
Like, especially if it's not for a specialty, because
Yeah.
not a lot of people do sign painting and neon still. So if they're coming to us for a specialty, that makes sense. But if they're coming to us for channel letters, I'm like, what happened with the previous company? So if I know the company and I have a friendly relationship with them, I'll ask. But
Okay.
a lot of them, we try to be friendly, but I don't have a relationship with every sign company in the area. So
All right. Perfect. Well, that was nice, quick hitting. We appreciate the insight. Once again, if you want to see some of his work and a little bit of the story behind it, you can check out our May edition on signshop.com. Thanks again for taking the time out of your day, Alex.
yeah, thank you.